Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most critical questions of our age Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most critical questions of our age is how best to reconcile the seemingly inevitable process of continued urbanization with the wider imperative of sustainability. The Iclei World Congress is one of the most important gatherings through which we might find solutions to this complex conundrum, and I feel most flattered to have been invited to offer a few thoughts of my own on this rather challenging subject. Every year, the percentage of urban dwellers grows, creating a new breed of megacities that would have been unimaginable even relatively recently. In some respects, this is a force for good, allowing for increased opportunity, education, and an escape from poverty for hundreds of millions of people. It is, however, vital to ensure that we design and plan the expansion of our cities to achieve more socially inclusive, resilient, and sustainable outcomes, while at the same time more effectively incorporating and conserving nature by avoiding what has become the conventional urban and suburban sprawl. This is why I set up my Foundation for Building Community and the International Network for Traditional Building, Architecture and Urbanism, in order to rediscover time-tested principles of ecological planning and building, which these organizations have now been putting into practice for over 20 years, as well as other efforts I have been pursuing in creating the new model settlement of Panbury in England, for instance. At the heart of these endeavors is the recognition of the importance of active citizen participation on the one hand, and of a strategic joined-up approach on the other, whereby transport engineers, planners and architects work together to create framework plans to guide humane, walkable and ecological cities. Rather than rely solely on developing technologies to reduce carbon emissions, surely we should put into practice what we already know about creating towns and cities that avoids the need for emitting carbon in the first place. Of course, improving the design of the built environment is only part of the sustainable urbanization puzzle. The environmental goods and services that support cities, including soil, water, timber, crops, livestock, fish and pollinating insects, are largely situated externally. So I don't believe it is too dramatic to suggest that the very future of humankind rests largely upon whether the dependency between cities and the wider environment can be shaped in a harmonious and sustainable manner. For example, in recent decades, we have generally seen not only a progressive physical and mental separation of people from the land that sustains them, but also a growing distance between urban areas and the source of their food. Global supply networks have, of course, brought great advantages, but in so doing, they have created a series of vulnerabilities and risks. These new challenges include maintaining human health and well-being, providing sufficient employment, dealing with climate change, conserving biological diversity and ecosystems, and consuming resources in a more sustainable manner. That is not a short or insignificant list. I do understand that the ever-increasing globalization of food supply and other commodities, such as fuel and timber, marks a triumph of technology and logistics. But like so many triumphs, it comes at a cost. In the interests of sustainability and resilience, I think it is also important to look at the extent to which building food and other essential support systems directly around city regions might provide a route towards a more desirable future. Pursuing a healthier, more integrated relationship between urban areas, or rather urban quarters, and their rural hinterlands can provide a wide range of fundamental benefits. These involve opportunities for balanced economic development, including increased rural income and jobs, for regional economic vitality, including new drivers for entrepreneurship and innovation, and for developing circular economies, where wastes are recovered as a resource rather than lost as refuse and pollution. There are also social benefits, including improved public health and well-being arising from the increased local availability of nutritious food, as well as environmental benefits arising from reduced transport requirements and the stronger and more direct recognition of the ecosystem services that the local environment provides. Of course, shifting away from business as usual is never a simple task, and for change to happen at scale, it is critically important that cities are able to exchange knowledge and learn from one another how best to move forward. We've seen many encouraging developments in this regard, not least in the area of food policy, where the city of Milan is bringing together over 30 leading cities to agree an urban food policy pact, which will be signed by mayors this October at the Milan Expo. In parallel, my own International Sustainability Unit has been convening the various organizations who work on urbanization and food systems to explore how best to coordinate their activities. And I very much appreciate Iclei's offer to help drive forward this agenda in the months to come. Ladies and gentlemen, many strands of history brought us to the world we inhabit today, but arguably the two greatest driving forces have been urbanization and agriculture, with all the fundamental connections and mutual dependencies between them. Now, however, in the face of a series of new and alarming challenges, including rapid population growth in many of our cities, it seems to me the right time to take a fresh look, not only based on where we have come from, but also where we are going. So your World Congress, ladies and gentlemen, presents a timely opportunity to do just that, especially considering the further development this year of Sustainable Development Goals, a new climate change accord, and preparations for next year's Habitat 3 gathering. Whatever the mix of ideas and goals that emerge from these, it is clear that the role of cities will be pivotal to realizing them. So I wish you every possible success in your work here this week, and will much look forward to hearing about the outcomes.
I'd like to invite Zhang Xinsong, the President of International Union for Conservation of Nature and Executive Chairman of Eco-Forum Global China. And he will be talking under the theme of Eco-Civilization as Paradigm for Urban Development. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Respected member of the Iclei, fellow mayors, deputy mayors, and partners, friends of the local governments. President Catman and also incoming President Mr. Park Wong-sun, and also Secretary General Mr. Gino van Becking. And dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Before I deliver my address, I'd like to first congratulate Mr. Mayor of the Seoul Metropolitan Government for taking this very challenging and important position. This morning I have a talk with him. It's my honor. Two things impressed me a great deal. Number one, as a leader of this mega city, 10 million of the population, I think city is, under his leadership, very highly conscientious about environmental protection and nature conservation, both in strategies to mitigate and build resilience to climate change, and furthermore, the city's efforts understand the interdisciplinary nature of climate change strategy and are working to maximize the benefits across sectors with each program and projects. And more so, he mobilized all the citizens of the Seoul to participate into the action. So let me congratulate, and also let me congratulate and appreciate the outgoing President, Mr. Cotman, for your excellent speech. And also I met you in Belo Horizonte, and thank you for your wonderful leadership for this organization. Also, I'd like to congratulate all the global regional members of the Executive Committee. It will be you that lead this very important organization, because the power of the local government has been demonstrated bigger and bigger. Now let me deliver my speech. It is a real privilege for me to be a part of this opening of the 2015 Iclei World Congress here in Seoul. An exemplary green city committed to improving its urban environment. The Seoul city has demonstrated in a very inspiring way with the restoration of the Cheonggyecheon stream, how nature can contribute to the well-being of the citizens and the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to highlight that this year, Iclei will celebrate its 25th anniversary, a great achievement characterized by 5E, that is international, initiative, innovation, impetus, and impact. Let me congratulate Iclei to its 25th anniversary, and I wish you the best of luck in continuing your outstanding leadership for local governments and sustainability in the coming years. Fellow mayors, deputy mayors, ladies and gentlemen, I think this year's theme, the sustainable solution for urban future, is very timely set and is critical importance. You as a leader of the local governments, you all know that when you're not only catering with the daily issues like jobs, food, transportation, even cities' environment, but you also predict the future trend of your country, your region, and this world as a whole. I would say now the world is at a crossroad. The world this year, 2015, is a turning point. If I would like to put it in a way that from tipping point to the turning point. The tipping point, we already see the demographic shift to the city. 77 billion of the population, 70% will be urbanized. In 30 to 50 years, it will be 10 billion. So city and the local government actually become the core of this world. While this world, we are facing three big challenges. Number one is the globalization. Along with the globalization, the biggest future is the change. And for the change, the current feature of the change is uncertainty. For instance, technology, pumping day after another, especially disruptive technology, that will change industry, change economy overnight. Let alone that we see that disruptive business model, and that greatly impact the economy, society as a whole. The second challenge we are facing is the climate change, global warming. And along with that, not only the challenge, but we also see the birth of the third industrial revolution. That is to say, renewable energy meeting with the internet and also information technology, which many scientists say that will be the beginning of the third industrial revolution. So it's a challenge, and more so, it's a green revolution, it's an opportunity. And the third one is the urbanization. For that, you know much more than I do. But the good news is that, as the former speakers all noticed that, this year, when I say it's a turning point, there are two very important events. That is to say, the New York September, UN's General Assembly. No matter how many difficulties it is still encountered, but there is one thing clear, that is to say, we are shifting or moving from MDG, Millennium Development Goal, to SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. And the second is by end of the year, COP21, climate change in Paris. For all of that global governance, is that enough? We just rely on intergovernmental UN system? No, even UN recognizes that. It is the major group. The major group means that local government, business, academia, science and technology, women, workers, farmers, ethnic minority, and the young people. So this meeting, I think, is absolutely important because of the impact of the city of the world for the global resources management and the impact of a democratic shift of the world are so much importance. So I do hope and I believe this Congress will be a very successful one, and in your way to join the global governance and contribute for that. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me now to say something about IUCN. As many of you know that IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Nature Resources, is the world's oldest and largest global environmental organization, and it is the only one has been given the status of a permanent observer status to participate in UN General Assembly. And we assist societies around the world to protect biodiversity and conserve the ecosystem, as that system is a life-supporting system and also is the nature infrastructure, so as to ensure the sustainable and equitable use of the natural resources and improve the livelihood of local community. There are over 1,200 members in our network, including governments and NGO, and around 15,000 voluntary scientists and experts. We gather knowledge, influence policies and the law, and implement field projects around the world to show how nature is essential for a sustainable future. We are convinced that if nature thrives, humans thrive too. As you all probably know that, we human beings cannot live without nature, but nature can be sustainable without us human beings. You know that IUCN participate and contribute to 1972's Earth Congress. that is the globally common recognized there is only one planet. And IUCN, together with UNEP and also WWF, that initiate the first idea of sustainable development in the report to UN as a conservation strategy. Today, IUCN introduced again to the world the concept of nature-based solution. What is the nature-based solution? In direct sense, nature-based solution at the UN climate negotiation, we're presenting forest restoration as a complementary solution for climate adaptation and mitigation. Nature-based solutions are solutions which draw on nature by protecting and restoring ecosystems to address challenges such as climate change, nature disasters, water scarcity, and food security. They are cost-effective and provide multiple social and environmental benefits. For example, implementing a forest protection strategy in the water catchment area of New York City was estimated to be 7 times cheaper than building and operating a conventional water treatment plant. While nature-based solution in broad sense, it means that in the past 100 years, we are so much believing and exercising engineering solution, technology solution, cultural solution, and social solution, and etc., and political solution. But we believe that no matter what kind of solution, you cannot go without following the universal nature law. So this is something we think IUCN can contribute to you. For instance, many decisions which affect biodiversity and nature are taken at the local level. Unfortunately, investment in this nature infrastructure is vastly underexplored as a policy approach. Nature is like an angel investor in the global economy. It provides some 72 trillion a year of free support to the global economy. This is more than 4 times the size of the US economy. As a global network, IUCN aims to build partnerships and bring scientific experts, national, regional, and local governments, the private sectors, and the civil society groups together to provide evidence on how nature-based solution can be the engine for sustainable change. Ecosystem-based approach to climate adaptation, forest restoration in and around the urban area, and connecting the benefits of the protecting areas to urban and regional planning are some of the many areas of expertise of IUCN that could strongly support local authorities. We need to create innovative partnerships that actively engage with all stakeholders, and cooperation with Iclei is a great example. The local action for building a program run by Iclei in partnership with IUCN has very successfully worked with the cities all over the world on the innovative plans that have set a standard for local biodiversity. Over the years, our partnership has gone from strength to strength. Co-creation approaches based on the establishment of the common objectives and expectations are crucial to develop ownership, stewardship, and empower communities to sustainable management and conserve nature resources. Let me share with you 2 examples of successful partnership involving local actors and business. In Thailand and Vietnam, the IUCN mangroves and markets projects aim to promote ecosystem-based adaptation through mangrove restoration and their sustainable use. The project is testing innovative forms of financing and integrated mangrove polyculture that link climate protection and climate adaptation to sustainable agriculture in mangrove ecosystem. The project result will feed into legislation at local and provincial level, into regional learning process, and into the global dialogue on reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation. By establishing potential link between organic seafood producers and buyers, it also encourages farmers to move their agricultural practices forward a more sustainable and environmental friendly model. Second example, in East London in UK, the Mayor's Book Park Climate Change Project rehabilitated a river and created a new floodplain that can naturally and safely store flood water. New shrubs and trees were planted to provide shade and habitat for wildlife, and new footpaths were built to make the park more accessible to the public. Public and private organizations have worked together to transform a rundown park into a showcase of how public green space can help a community cope with the risks of climate change and enhance the well-being of the citizens. An economic assessment of the project found a benefit-to-cost ratio of 7:1, demonstrating economic benefits of such an approach. Dear colleagues, to conclude, none of the major 21st century challenges of global warming, food, water, energy scarcity, and disaster risk reduction and economic and social development can be resolved through nature-based solutions alone. But all of these issues depend to some degree on the health and functionality of the Earth's ecosystems. This is why nature-based solutions are so important and can help to make a real difference. I hope that the examples that I have shared with you demonstrate how important it is to integrate nature solutions in urban and regional planning. The time is now for implementing and scaling up of these nature-based solutions to enable cities to reap the multiple and synergistic benefits that they provide. At IUCN, we look forward to continuing our fruitful collaboration with Iclei on these issues. And I think that sustainability solution, no matter what city has achieved a great deal, or some cities still catch up, or some cities still at the beginning stage. Nevertheless, sustainability is a moving target. At no present and future point should we say we think our work is done. So this is a challenge to all the human beings. This is a challenge to all the cities. And this is also a challenge to this planet. Let's join hands globally, no matter it's east, west, and south and north. And together, we can do it better. Together, we can show that local government's power in not only solve its own city, but also contribute to the world as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Zhang, for the introduction, also sharing your insights with us. We'll continue on talking about the addresses regarding towards a sustainable urban future. Our next speaker is Mr. Ibrahim Thieu, Deputy Executive Director from the United Nations Environment Program. And he's going to talk under the theme of Perspectives for Partnerships to Ensure Sustainability of the Urban World in the Post-2015 Development Agenda. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you. Mr. Pa Won-Son, Mayor of Seoul and incoming President of Iclei, Mr. David Kadman, outgoing President of Iclei, Mr. Gino van Beggen, Secretary General of Iclei, distinguished mayors, honorable guests, representatives of all sectors, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a pleasure to be standing here today on the occasion of the Iclei World Congress 2015. Allow me, first of all, to offer my warmest congratulations to Mayor Park for his election as President of Iclei. Let me also thank David Kadman for his excellent speech and for his passion. And thank you for your dedication to Iclei as well. The choice of Seoul as the host city to this Congress is extremely judicious. Koreans are known all over the world as great hosts. We thank you for your generosity and your hospitality. We admire your discipline and your sense of duty. The resistance of Korean people is only matched by the resilience of the Mungangwa. The Mungangwa, for those of you who do not know, is a hibiscus flower whose blossoms grace the entire country and is known to survive harsh conditions. The selection of the theme is also wise. UNEP's partnership with Iclei, the major network of local governments dedicated to sustainable development, dates back to its creation. UNEP is proud to have been part of this journey since 1990. I congratulate Iclei for the work it has carried out over the past 25 years and the central position it has acquired on sustainability issues at the local level. This year, as the UN turns 70, major developments are expected. World leaders are expected to conclude their negotiations on the Sustainable Development Goals in September 2015 in New York. Earlier, in July, in Addis Ababa, the world will meet again for a crucial conference on financing for development. Later in the year, as was said by previous speakers, Paris will be in the limelight with the Conference on Climate Change, where governments are expected to conclude a landmark agreement that will largely determine the future states of the planet. There are values that are shared across faiths, cultures, and civilizations. Prosperity is a goal of every nation, and dignity a goal for every human being. Alas, in pursuit of that prosperity, we are abundantly using our natural resources. We are consuming our planet beyond sustainable limits. As was said before, today more than half of the world population lives in cities, and the trend continues, as some predict that urban dwellers will represent 70% of the world population by 2050. Yesterday's Homo sapiens had a lifestyle that was largely dependent on, but harmonious with nature. Tomorrow, the citizen will essentially be Homo urbanus. They will enjoy good lives in cities. They will have access to modern technology. They will travel much longer distances. They will have plenty. They will consume plenty. But they will also waste plenty. By 2050, city dwellers will shape the world for better or for worse. They will be responsible for what I call the striking 5 by 75, They will represent more than 75% of the global GDP. They will consume 75% of global energy. They will consume 75% of extracted natural resources. They will be responsible for approximately 75% of global CO2 emissions. They will be responsible for 75% of global waste generation. As these figures clearly tell us, cities will continue to have a large ecological footprint. Special efforts will need to be deployed in large cities if we want to avoid unsustainable development patterns. Most of the resource flow that support cities are finite. So continuing global economic development will depend on decoupling growth from escalating resource use. A shortage of some of the world's key metals is likely to occur within the next 50 years, potentially affecting many industries. Yet, today's cities contain higher sources of specialty metals in their waste streams of mobile phones and computers than in the best virgin ores. In other words, our waste piles may become our most accessible resources if we do it right. Simply put, the old 3 R's trio has never been as relevant as it is today. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Ladies and gentlemen, let us talk about energy. 3/4 of the energy produced are consumed in cities. Industries are largely located in the vicinity and, in some cases, in the middle of cities. The number of cities with more than 1 million inhabitants reached 378 in the year 2000, up from 11 in the year 1990. By 2025, only 10 years from now, 600 cities will surpass the 1 million people. This growth is largely taking place in the developing world. The demand for energy will be exponential as rural people with little or no access to energy migrate to urban areas. Yet, new urban dwellers are new local electors. They are new decision makers. Local governments are therefore facing major challenges, but these challenges can be turned into opportunities. First of all, by promoting energy efficiency. District energy plants have become popular in both cold and high ambient temperatures. Smart grid technologies have proved themselves for their efficiency. The use of energy-saving appliances and lightings, as well as improved building efficiency, would complete the battery of measures. These are options for all kinds of situations. Secondly, renewable energy technologies have finally imposed themselves as technically and financially viable options. UNEP and its partners, Bloomberg and Frankfurt School, published just last week the 2015 report on global trends in renewable energy investments. Strikingly, the year 2014 saw more than 100 gigawatts of renewable energy installations. Never before has this much energy capacity been added in the world from renewable sources, hydro excluded. More than $270 billion were invested last year in sustainable energy technologies, up by 17% from the previous year. This against the backdrop of the financial crisis and the more than 50% collapse of oil prices in the second half of the year. It is worth noting that nearly half of these investments took place in the developing world, essentially in the solar and wind sectors. Indeed, countries such as Indonesia, Chile, Mexico, Kenya, South Africa, and Turkey invested each more than $1 billion in renewable energy in 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, today managing waste is one of the biggest challenges faced by local authorities. Solid waste, electronic waste, wastewater. Unfortunately, the wealthier we get, the more rubbish we produce, and the more wastewater we generate. Sadly, up to 90% of wastewater produced in developing countries goes untreated into rivers, lakes, and coastal zones, threatening health, food security, and access to safe drinking water. Today, 6 hospital beds out of 10 in the developing countries are filled with people affected by water-related diseases. We also waste a lot of food. Too much food is wasted. Up to 1/3 of the food we produce is not eaten, is not consumed, is wasted. We live in a world of paradoxes and inequalities. Close to 1 billion persons still go to bed hungry. At the same time, another billion suffers from obesity, including in developing countries. Some countries have reached more than 25% rate of obesity in their population, increasing dramatically related cardiovascular diseases and health costs for governments. Larger quantities of food does not mean greater happiness and wealth. Most of the time, it signifies more waste and unhealthy lives. Citizens aspire at cleaner cities, cleaner rivers, cleaner lakes. Sadly, many coastal areas are being deserted by tourists or companies for poor environment. A growing number of local authorities get rejected by their electors for their inability to improve on the quality of life of their citizens. The good news is waste management is not only ecologically critical, but is also economically a viable option. Waste stockpiles may actually be mines. Appropriate waste management generates clean energy. Waste management creates jobs. Appropriate regulatory policy frameworks and incentives need to be put in place by decision makers to incite citizens to make better choices. Changing the way we live does not mean giving away happiness, wealth, or health. On the contrary, it changes the way we define and measure quality of life. Adopting a sustainable lifestyle entails accountability and responsibility. It ensures that when we leave this place to our children and their children, they too can prosper. Ladies and gentlemen, more than often we take for granted the air we breathe. Unfortunately, in many megacities of the world, the issue of air quality has become a major concern, both for local citizens and for investors, to the point that PM levels hit the headlines of national and international news. Poor air quality, this silent killer, has caused, according to the World Health Organization, in a report published last year, up to 7 million premature deaths. This burden is more than tuberculosis, malaria, AIDS, Ebola, and road accidents combined. Asian megacities are particularly affected, though the phenomenon is truly global and risks are growing worldwide. Another important action is the promotion of fuel-efficient cars as well as sustainable public transport systems. Bus rapid transport systems, metros, tramways. There are numerous examples from around the world. Congratulations to Guangzhou, to Accra. Congratulations to Dubai, to Bogota, etc. Many of these cities are doing just that. Sustainable public transport systems have multiple benefits as they reduce CO2 emissions, improve health outcomes, and improve productivity of workers. I know. The next question is, all of this requiring financing, where would the money come from? Le nerf de la guerre. as they say in French. Finance is pivotal. It takes commitment to seize these opportunities to put us on a smart and sustainable path for prosperity. Part of this commitment should come in from public financing, mostly domestic, notably through appropriate tax systems. International public financing would be an essential complement where necessary. However, sustainable development will largely depend and will largely be achieved with private investments. While most of the issues we raised earlier may appear as challenges, there are plenty of investment opportunities. At a time where companies are divesting in carbon-intense and polluting sectors, many are turning their attention to investments in clean energy, the energy of the future. Green investments will be the next frontiers in terms of new markets and new opportunities, both in industrialized countries and in the energy-hungry developing world. Similarly, energy efficiency measures call for financing, district cooling or district heating, energy-saving lighting and appliances, construction of or renovation to energy-efficient buildings. Setting up efficient waste management systems require major private investments. These are bankable. Investing in sustainable public transports is also investments that are profitable in the long term. These investments need to be catalyzed and supported by adequate policy reforms and regulation changes across all sectors. Investments in urban development will attract banks, insurance companies, and pension funds. Evidence shows that when investments are targeted towards greening key economic sectors, they can produce multiple benefits to society, to the economy, and to the environment. Local governments have the spending power to drive a transformation in such green investments. Regulators from all over the world, central banks, ministries of finance are looking at alternative ways of financing sustainable development beyond the traditional development cooperation funding streams. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude with a few words on the importance of partnerships in achieving our ambition of sustainable solutions for an urban future. Obviously, our urban future will largely depend on partnerships between local authorities and national governments. We will continue to see shifts in the governance systems with increasing empowerment of local authorities. It is critical to build momentum for a new approach to urbanization, making cities the solution to pursue long-term well-being with low impact onto the environment. The strong and successful collaboration between Iclei and UNEP in advancing the Sustainable Cities Agenda is proof to the effectiveness of partnerships. As we know, there are solutions, and many of you in this hall, I should say in this beautiful hall, have been working on these. Remarkable progress has been made in many parts of the world. We need to build on our successes. We need to upscale them. We need to be inspired by resilient species like the mungungwa, the symbolic significance of which stems from the word mungung, meaning immortality, a reflection of the endurance nature of Korea, of the Korean culture, and the determination and perseverance of the Korean people. Adopting more sustainable solutions for an urban future is a moral obligation. The great news is that it makes business sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your acknowledgement and also for sharing your foresights with us. Lastly but not leastly, let's welcome Director General Iclei from the China Center for Urban Development of China. He's going to talk about Chinese cities on their way towards sustainability. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. 尊敬的Iclei主席、现任主席、首尔市市长朴元淳先生，尊敬的Iclei前主席 and Director David Cadman 先生，各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，大家下午好。在春意盎然、鲜花灿烂的季节，来到首尔，参加2015年世界大会，与来自世界各地的城市市长、联合国机构、国际组织的专家讨论推进可持续发展的城镇化，我感到非常的荣幸。借这次机会，向大会的胜利召开表示热烈的祝贺，并衷心感谢Iclei和大会组委对我们的邀请。近30年来，中国城镇化取得了令人瞩目的成就，城镇化率从上个世纪80年代的18%提高到2014年的55%，每年呢平均提高1个多百分点。特别是进入21世纪以来，中国的城镇化，城镇人口每年增加2072万，相当于每年有2个首尔市的人口进入城市。那么目前呢，中国城镇的总人口是7.5亿。中国呢，城镇化发展的速度之快，农村向城镇人口转移的规模之大，是世界上前所未有的。如果我们算一下，中国的城镇人口相当于欧盟人口的总和，还要加2.2亿。如果把美国和日本的人口再加起来，还要增加2.3亿、2.1亿。那么中国的城镇化呢，也是世界最大规模的人口城镇化进程。那么到2030年，中国城镇化如果要达到70%的话，中国的城镇人口在现有的7.5亿的基础上，还要增加2.7亿人口。那么中国的城市呢，规模呢也是世界上最大的，1000万人口以上的城市在中国有6个，2000万人口以上的城市有2个，500万人口以上的城市呢有21个，100万人口以上的城市呢140个，5万人口以上的城市呢1500个，1万多人口以上的城市呢，小城市呢2万个。如此众多的城市和重大规模的城市人口，在未来的城镇化发展道路上，是走一个高消耗、高排放的不可持续的发展路径，还是走绿色、低碳、可持续的发展路径，对于中国人来讲，是面临着一个非常艰巨的选择。虽然我们经历了30年的高速的城镇化发展进程，但是呢，也把在其他发达国家经历过几百年这个城镇化发展历史的矛盾，集中在这么一个短短的时间。所以，中国在城镇化中所取得的成功和积累的矛盾是并存的。因此呢，中国的城镇化呢，面临着巨大的挑战和前所未有的压力。我们很多人都去过中国的城市，看到中国的城市发展的非常迅速，城市的面貌日新月异地在发生变化。可是我们也同时感受到，中国的城市也面临着城市病的困扰，比如说雾霾问题，在全国已经普遍存在。大城市的交通拥堵问题、频发的公共安全事件、公共卫生问题有待提高，基础设施供给相对滞后，城市给排水、污水问题、垃圾处理能力严重不足，危旧房改造压力巨大。城市的城中村和城乡结合部人口聚集区的环境需要进一步的治理，城市管理的水平和治理的能力也需要进一步提高。也就是说，中国在前30年更多的关注了速度的发展，忽视了质量的发展。那么更多的呢，现在需要呢，迫切的需要从速度和 数量型增长向注重质量和效率的增长发生转变。所以呢，也要更多的关注以人为本，关注可持续和绿色的发展。2014年，中国中央政府颁布了国家新型城镇化发展规划，提出全面提高城镇化质量，转变城市化发展方式，以人的城镇化为核心，提升城市可持续发展水平。中国正从转型、改革和创新的层面，大力推进各种管理制度的改革，推动城市走集约、智能、绿色、低碳的新型城镇化发展道路。中国致力于推进中国特色的新型城镇化建设，对全球而言可谓是非常重要的空前的机遇，也使得中国城镇化领域的国际合作面临着巨大的前景。2012年，中国政府和欧盟签订了中欧城镇化合作伙伴共同宣言。去年 ，IPEC 在提出 IPEC 国际合作的时候，也把城镇化作为一个非常重要的战略目标来提出。当前呢，中国在城镇化领域不仅仅要推行一系列的改革和发展路径的选择，实现转型和创新。另一方面呢，更重要的要广泛的开展国际合作。第一个呢，是要借鉴国际经验。在立足国情的情况下，中国需要借鉴世界各国城镇化发展的有益经验和教训，吸取城市管理的手段和先进的手段和先进的观念。第二呢，是要加强交流，加强中国政府和国际城镇的政府、企业间、机构间和组织间开展的各种国际的交流活动、论坛、研讨以及国际的合作研究。第三呢，是要引进技术，促进国外的高技术到中国寻找投资机会，使国际的技术和中国的大市场日益结合。第四呢，是开展低碳智慧城市的项目合作，促进清洁能源、节水技术、环保技术等等在中国城市广泛的推广和普及，提高城市的资源配置效率。中国城市发展中心作为中国最重要的和最具有影响力的城镇化智库，一方面在制定中国的城镇化政策中发挥着重要的作用，另一方面也在推广中国的城镇化国际合作中也发挥着重要的作用。我们未来的城市发展和城镇化的国际合作主要在以下几个方面展开。第一呢，要以示范指导的方式推进城镇化的国际合作，从研讨、从交流走向务实。那么通过一些样板示范项目来使呢这些先进的经验呢进一步到了实际的推广。第二呢，是推进呢国际间的智慧城市、低碳城市的合作。那么我们已经成立了智慧城市发展联盟。这个智慧城市发展联盟正和国际的一系列智慧城市发展联盟在中国选择了上百个智慧城市的样板，来推广智慧和低碳的这种城市治理和建设。第三呢，是搭建了交流平台，促进了广泛的国际合作。第四呢，是开展双边的多边的国际合作，比如说和 IPEC 的合作，和 Iclei 的合作，以及其他一些国际组织，世界银行、UNDP、联合国的其他国际组织，以及东盟城市间的合作。今天我们汇聚一堂，共同探讨城市可持续发展的议题，期待中国可持续发展的城镇化能创造和传递奇迹，也憧憬着 未来美好的城市生活。我们希望中国的城镇化不仅仅在中国的国内实现转型创新，也要在未来中国国家主席习近平提出的丝绸之路经济带和21世纪海上丝绸之路的战略构想下，来开展更新的、更进一步的合作。我们希望在这个合作过程中，加强和在座的国际组织和各位嘉宾城市的进一步的交流，也希望呢更好的和 Iclei 组织进行更广泛的合作和交流。最后呢，我衷心预祝呢本次大会取得圆满成功。谢谢。
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights with us. Now, you may all return to your seats. Thank you very much. That was the high-level addresses under the theme of Towards a Sustainable Urban Future, where we heard many insights from these gentlemen. Now, we would like to take a special moment and invite the mayor of Port Vila City Council of Vanuatu. This is Mayor Yuli Sumto, and he is going to give us a speech under the title, A Call for Action. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the mayor up on the podium with a big round of applause.
Thank you. Firstly, Chairman of Iclei, colleague Mayor Park, all colleague Mayor attending this Iclei Congress in Seoul, all Iclei participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great honor that I be given the opportunity to address this forum. I thought that might also salute the host city of Seoul for your generous hospitality. In February, I attended the Iclei City Asia Pacific Congress held in Bangkok with Mayor Alfred Fatai and Deputy Mayor Eddie Ngava of Oniara City Council, Solomon Island. I commend Deputy Mayor Ngava on his membership of the Iclei Oceania Regional Executive Committee. I look forward to ongoing collaboration with Iclei Oceania as we build a network of Pacific Island local government working together towards a sustainable future. Just last month, on the 3rd and 4th March, the small island state of Vanuatu faced the fury of tropical cyclone Pam. It was registered as one of the more severe storms in history within the Pacific region. In its wake, leaving 11 dead, 110 people with no access of safe drinking water, and 96% food crops destroyed. Overall, 166,600 people were affected. For a small developing country with just over 270,000 population, the severity of the destruction event immense. The city of Port Vila, which I am experienced widespread destruction as the eye of the Category 5 cyclone passed close to the east of Port Vila. Communications, infrastructure, electricity, and water supply were largely affected. In Port Vila alone, an approximative 34,000 people were affected. Close to 4,000 people needed to be temporarily evacuated from their usual residence. The contribution of early warning advances, disaster preparedness and traditional knowledge have in a way led to reduced mortality figures this time. However, it is expected that the broader socio-economic cost will be significantly high for Port Villa's fragile and budding economy. At this point in time, as I speak, the Council that I led along with partner agencies are now fully engaged in restoring basic service functions. Relief is being distributed to impact communities. This catastrophic event is indeed a wake-up call. It is a timely reminder of not only nature's power over us, but also of our very own influence on nature through our various development pathways. Small vulnerable states like Vanuatu will continue to be the burden of an increasingly changing climate, with projection for more intense storms in a uncertain changing climate. Losses for future climate-related disasters, such as Cyclone Palm, will only set back years of development progress. The need to have a serious commitment to holistic, inclusive, innovative, and sustainable development transformation has never been ever greater. I call, therefore, for increased and serious commitments towards ambition to significantly reduce global carbon emission now and in the many years to come. Climate talk deals must effectively translate the visible and concrete action at all governance levels. A beyond 2-degree warmer world will only compromise our very existence. Developing small island states, cities such as Port Vila have limited resources to draw from. However, we can go a long way in drawing strength from partnerships. On that note, I humbly ask that meaningful bonds be forged between the resourceful and those in need of resources. Solid and effective partnership will enhance transition towards a more resilient development path. In the aftermath of Vanuatu's recent devastating and trying event, I would also like to pay homage to those whom have loved ones and had their life turned upside down. I therefore further urge for continued support towards the Vanuatu government and United Nations Tropical Cyclone Palm flash appeal efforts. It will be through your generous hearts that Port Vila and the nation of Vanuatu as a whole will bounce back progressively stronger. The time to act is now. Delayed action globally will only mean prolonged hardships and ill-fated consequences, particularly for the most vulnerable amongst us. Distinguished guests, Iclei participants, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Let's give another big round of applause, showing our love and support, hoping the people over in Vanuatu will get back to their lives as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Now we are moving on to our next section when we are going to talk about why we all act together. And under this theme, I am going to invite Mr. Iclei, the Vice Chair of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who's also a professor of Korea University Graduate School of Energy and Environment. I would like to invite him up on stage, where he will be talking under the theme, The Risk of No Action, key findings of the 5th Assessment Report of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you. The Honorable Mayor Park Won-sun, Mr. David Cadman, the Chair of Iclei, members of Iclei, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the invitation. I'm very much honored to be here to present some of the key messages from the latest IPCC assessment report. Some of you may know that IPCC, but I also think that some may not know very well of the IPCC. Therefore, let me briefly say a few words about IPCC before I go into the findings of the IPCC reports. IPCC was established by WMO and UNEP. We have the Deputy Executive Director here, UNEP, and endorsed by UN General Assembly 27 years ago, 2 years earlier than the birth of Iclei, with a mandate to provide review and recommendations as to the state of knowledge of climate science, social and economic impacts of climate change, and response measures to climate change. Our assessment reports since 1990 have been instrumental in the formulation of the UN Climate Convention, and then the Kyoto Protocol, and later on the Copenhagen Accord and many other agreements. Our latest fifth assessment report, which was completed last year, will have been the basis of the Paris Convention late this year. Our assessment, the latest one, is the product of close to 1,000 scientists from all around the world who have voluntarily contributed to their precious time assessing the literature on climate science. Rigorous peer review process and also the government review process were implemented, and the summary of policymakers of the reports was approved by governments line by line, and this is quite a unique product because it is a very successful example of the science and policy interface. We believe that the summary for policymakers of IPCC reports have the joint authorship of the scientists and governments constituting the IPCC. On this basis, I would like to report some key messages and findings of our latest report. We confirm that the human influence on climate system is clear. And secondly, the more we disrupt our climate, the more we risk severe, pervasive, and reversible impacts, and then we have the means to limit climate change and build a more prosperous, sustainable future. We know that each of the last 3 decades has been successfully warmer than the preceding decades since 1850. We found that the human influence has been the dominant cause of warming since the mid-20th century. The ocean has absorbed more than 90% of the energy accumulating in the climate system for the last 40 years, which has contributed a lot to the acidification of ocean, which is a serious problem. Global mean sea level rose by 19 centimeters for the last 110 years. Throughout this period, the energy production has been the primary driver of emissions growth, with the energy sector accounting for 35% of the emissions globally. Urban areas accounted for 67% of global energy use, and its share of global CO2 emissions is currently 44%. In terms of GDP, urban areas generate close to 80% of global GDP. We also know that climate change impacts are already underway on all continents and in the ocean, affecting rich and poor countries. In particular, the urban climate change risks, vulnerabilities, and impacts are increasing across the world in urban centers of all sizes, economic conditions, and site characteristics, with widespread negative impacts on the people, infrastructure system, and ecosystem services. If we continue this business usual emissions path, our latest assessments highlight that in addition to the risks and hazard dangers mentioned by all previous speakers, the climate change will amplify existing risks and create new risks for natural and human systems. These risks are generally greater for disadvantaged people and communities in countries at all levels of development, regardless of the level of the income or level of the well-being. It should be noted that much of key and emerging climate risks are concentrated in urban areas. This is because rapid urbanization in low and middle income countries led to increased settlements in areas at high risk from climate change. The latest assessment also indicate that many aspects of climate change and associated impacts will continue for centuries even if anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases are stopped. Therefore, the risks of abrupt, irreversible changes increases as the magnitude of the warming increases. Now, the stabilization of the atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases involves a moving away from business as usual path. Now, limiting the temperature increase to 2 degrees C by the end of the century, as some speakers mentioned previously, requires the reductions of greenhouse gas emissions by 40% to 70% relative to year 2010 levels within next 35 years. And then it requires emissions of zero and some negative emissions by 2100. A combination of adaptation measures and substantial sustained reduction of greenhouse gas emissions can limit climate change risks. Our assessment confirmed that action in urban centers is essential to successful responses to climate change. The anticipated growth in urban population will require a massive buildup of infrastructure, which is a key driver of emissions growth across multiple sectors. Let me say a few words about the urban infrastructure. Currently, the average per capita CO2 emissions embodied in the infrastructure of the industrialized countries is about 5 times larger than those in the developing countries. The continued expansion of fossil fuel-based infrastructure would produce cumulative emissions of close to 5,000 gigatons of CO2 during the remainder of this century. Now, this 5,000 gigatons of CO2 means a 5 times the carbon budget of 1,000 gigatons of CO2, which is required for 2 degrees C temperature limit. And the existing infrastructure stock of average developed country resident is 5 times higher than that of developing country residents. The long life of infrastructure and the built-in environment make them particularly prone to lock-in of energy and emissions pathways, lifestyles, and consumption patterns that are difficult to change. This lock-in translates into a so-called commissioned emission. Now, this committed emissions from energy and transportation infrastructure amount to about 340 gigatons of CO2. This is equal to about 1/3 of the carbon budget. That carbon budget we have to live with in order to stay within the 2 degrees C temperature limit. Thus, the real carbon budget is not really 1,000 gigatons of CO2, but really a 661 gigatons of CO2. This means that the largest opportunities for future GHG emissions reduction might be in rapidly urbanizing countries where infrastructure inertia has not set in. In addition, we cannot underestimate the importance of urban areas in adaptation to climate change. Urban climate adaptation can build resilience and enable sustainable development. The report highlights that closer integration of city-based disaster risk management and climate change adaptation can provide benefits at all scales as it addresses directly the increasing exposure and vulnerabilities. Our assessment further indicates that the ambitious mitigation goal is affordable, although, as many previous speakers mentioned, implementing reductions in greenhouse gas emissions pose a substantial economic, social, technological, and institutional challenges. However, in terms of economic loss, calculated by measure of GDP, it translates into something like a slowdown economic growth by about 0.06% of economic growth out of the 3.0% of business as usual growth. Delaying mitigation will substantially increase the challenge and the costs associated with limiting temperature increases to 2 degrees C. This means that the successful implementation of urban climate change mitigation strategies can provide co-benefits, which include public savings, pollution and health benefits, productivity increase in urban centers, and providing additional motivation for undertaking GHG mitigation activities. In conclusion, the scientific findings of the latest IPCC assessment reports indicate that now is the time to act to prevent climate change and to come up with equitable pathways by which the risk from climate change can be limited to the levels that would ensure compliance with Article 2 of the UN Climate Convention, whose aim is to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions concentration in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. In this regard, cities and urban centers around the world have a major role in achieving the goal of Article 2 of the Climate Convention. IPCC's vision, mandate, and action are relevant more than ever. My best wishes for the 25th anniversary of Iclei, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor. And now we've come to the final part of the opening ceremony. I would like to invite the two Deputy Secretary Generals of Iclei, Monica Zimmerman and Imani Kumar, up on stage to share with us the aims and aspirations of this year's Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them up on stage with a big round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Imani Kumar. I'm Deputy Secretary General with the Iclei organization. And my colleague?
Monica Zimmerman.
We are going to take forward on our aims and aspirations. But before I say that, I'm very sorry for the delay of 10 minutes. But we will try our best to finish as soon as possible. We are here.
We would like to see the slides on the stage as well.
Yeah, we are waiting for some slides here. Okay.
Go.
Anyway, our aim is to inform you with more information. Our aim is to motivate or capacitate or equip and strengthen, enrich and connect you people with more information, with more best practices and with tools what we have and what Iclei can offer for you.
and we want to start practicing for later tonight for the reception. We would like to ask you that each of you now gets up and looks around for 1 or 2 persons you do not yet know, and just say your name, exchange your name or your business card. 20 seconds, come back, but just look around whom you do not yet know and say hello. It's about matchmaking. There are many people in the room you do not yet know. You can ask anyone from a country you know, with a language you know, or from a language you do not yet know. We realized there is a high desire in that room to talk because there was so much speeches on stage. The next days you will be going to talk more yourself as well.
Okay, thank you. Can we come back? You have next 2 to 3 days to introduce yourself to your colleagues.
So we hope that the next days you can approach colleagues, get more friends, and tell people what you are doing back home. We hope that you are not shy, that you just dare to speak to everybody you would like to speak with, that you try to use all languages you have, and that you help each other, for example, finding the right place in this very complex building when it's about finding the rooms for the parallel sessions tomorrow, for example. And speaking about languages, we see how much you like talking to each other. Speaking about languages, we want to make you aware that only a minority of us have English as their first language. Many are not used to use English or one of the other languages into which we translate. So please speak slowly and speak in a way that you can be well understood. You may now listen for another 3 to 4 minutes to us and continue your talks in the reception later. We have opened the box of the Pandora.
Can I request everybody to please take your seats? This very good introduction is going on, but we need to finish this. Can I request all of you, please take your seats. You have 2 more hours during the reception time. You can introduce yourself to your colleagues, your friends.
So, why are we here, Kumar?
You know, we are here. We have more than 1 million local governments, which consists of more than 200 countries, or more than 200 countries, and we have 1 United Nations. So we brought in all the local governments. We represent the local governments with a mission to build and serve a worldwide movement of local governments to achieve tangible improvements, I call it tangible improvements, in global sustainability, with a special focus on environmental conditions through cumulative local actions. Again, I repeat, through cumulative local actions. So we want to showcase on ground some solutions to the local governments to look forward for their issues, to solve their issues, to take it forward on that. We, Iclei, represent more than 700 million people. That includes 20% of the urban population throughout the world. You can see the rest of the remaining percentages, which shows how we are represented all over the world.
And who is here? I mean, you have heard it now several times. We have many local governments, local and regional governments, being represented here from many countries around the world. We have 150 Iclei members, and now you already see the targets. We would like, of course, to invite some more to join Iclei in the days and months to come. We also want to welcome the most recent members, some of them of the last weeks are mentioned here, and almost all of them are among us.
Who are we? How many of us are here? We are representatives of 40 capital cities who are more than 1 million cities of innovative cities. In this room, there are 230 mayors, vice mayors, and elected leaders. There are many departmental heads, sustainability experts, and officials who make change to happen. A lot of international organizations and local government associations. We also have partners from science and research in this room. We also have media representatives, NGO friends, and business representatives.
And what is relevant is that all of you come from cities and regions which have problems. This is obvious. We already heard that earlier today. But all of you also come from cities and regions which have outstanding policies, programs, and solutions, and that's exactly what we want then to hear about. We will discuss in the next days how among Iclei members and with other local and regional governments we can cooperate even more. So we are going to discuss about the launch and the start of some more Iclei communities or networks as we call them, be it on sustainable public procurement, be it on city food, Prince of Wales has mentioned that, or be it on the 100% renewable energy. We have a session where we want to convene the women leaders on sustainability, that they strengthen themselves. And we want also to discuss in how far more Iclei members could cooperate with small island states, because we have heard the call for action of Vanuatu.
We have 17 regional offices and secretariats and country offices in the world. I just want to introduce my colleagues. May I call all of them my colleagues here? We have Canadian Regional Director Megan Manny. We have USA Mr. Mike. And Mexico, Central America, Mr. Edgar. Can I ask all of my colleagues to come onto the stage just to showcase your faces? We have South America, Ms. Jusara. European Secretariat representing by Mr. Wolfgang. We have Africa Secretariat represented by Ms. Kobe Brandt. We have South Asia, myself also wearing that hat. Southeast Asia, Mr. Victoria, Vic Equatina, East Asia Secretariat, and we have Michi Kishigami and we have Takashi. We have, they are from Japanese office, and we have East Asia Secretariat, the founding director, Mr. Conrad Zimmerman, and the new director, we have Shuju. From Korea office, we have Yonhee Park. From Japan, I said Michi and also Takashi, who just took over. And we have Oceania, Mr. Martin. Kaohsiung Capacity Center, Chongwei. And Indonesia, Mr. Irwan.
So we just present these colleagues to you in order to encourage you to speak to them and to tell your requests of what these Iclei offices can do even further with you. You can stay or you can leave as you wish.
So these are all the 17 people. Please talk to them, utilize the time. You can ask them questions. You can go back to them. You can look for friendships. You can look for the membership from them. So I heard that there are more than 100 cities who are not yet members in this room. So please talk to your regional directors so that you can become an Iclei member and get advantage out of that.
In addition to the regional offices, we have the so-called thematic centers, and you see those 5 which we have established so far. Also, the heads of these thematic centers are here, and they would like to explore further programs and cooperation opportunities with our members. All these Iclei colleagues here, and you see we have many around the world, are really here to assist you, to help you, be it with their profound knowledge, be it with their languages, and they are ready to assist for matchmaking. And so that you know who these are, we have these round buttons. These round buttons normally should be the Iclei colleagues which you can approach at any time for your assistance.
So in next 4 days, as I said already, you approach all the Iclei colleagues of your region. Please explore about the Iclei programs, a visit to the Iclei lounge, and inform yourself about the membership. You can become a member of Iclei if you are a city government or city representative here. So please contact the people. Globally, we are an Iclei group with more than, with so many partners. You can see that all the green ones are our offices, our thematic centers. The blue ones, which are representing our partnerships with them. They're not complete list we have. I think at this stage, in next 3-4 days,
yes,
Monica,
we are increasing these partnerships formally because we are going to sign 11 memorandums of understanding with globally and strategically relevant partners to us. And we want to really encourage you to also take advantage of these partnerships. You can talk to them because many of them present, and you can share your own good knowledge, make it known to them, and you can also ask for their support. It could be supporting good ideas, maybe it can also be support in financial means.
We have a Congress app. If you can see on your schedule, on the booklet, what you got in your books, in your bags, it's on the last page. You can download that app, you can have more information, you can see which session is going on, you can have information about the speakers, and you can tweet back to us actually through using that, and you can talk about your colleagues from that app. So we recommend all of you to please download. You can do it on your mobile, you can do it on your desktops, you can do it on your iPads, anything you can use it. So please use this app and take more information, and you can get more information from this. So,
it's a working Congress. You have experienced that already in the last hours, I think.
We are very sorry that if you get little sleep on this, I know that we are blocking you from the reception and as well as the musical program from here onwards. I think we just want to thank you. Thanks for your time and thanks for your support.
And enjoy the next days. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction once again, Ms. Zimmerman and Mr. Kumar. And you've given us loads of homework to do for the next 4 days. Today's event is attended by representatives from 243 cities and subnational governments. I hope this heated debates and discussions, which will take place for 4 days starting tomorrow right here at DDP and the Seoul City Hall, I hope that this Congress will become an important starting point to bring about sustainable and vital changes to our lives. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude this opening ceremony, we have yet another congratulatory performance from our very little adorable little angels. And after this, we're going to take a short break before we come back for the welcoming reception. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the little angels once again.
The first dance was Changochum, the hourglass drum dance. Our next dance is Shijip Kanen Nal, wedding day. In ancient times, Korean boys and girls were sometimes married when they were little more than children. Moreover, there was frequently a wide difference in the ages of the happy couple. A groom of, say, 12 years might well be called upon to take a bride of more than twice his years. Needless to say, the lady in such a case was of necessity far more a harried mother than a blushing bride. Let us now see what might happen on the occasion of such a ludicrous wedding. Ladies and gentlemen, Shijip Kanen Nal, wedding day. Next on our program is Buchechum, fan dance. The fan, a symbol of Oriental delicacy and exquisiteness, plays a prominent part in the traditional way of life of the Korean people. The fan dance, therefore, is one of the most popular of Korean folk dances. Opening and closing the fan expresses joy and excitement, and the dancers convey this through their deceptively simple and beautifully symmetrical movements. Ladies and gentlemen, Buchechum, fan dance.